Hello everyone, so now it's time to welcome you officially. We're starting this talk, I believe. So during the next 40 minutes, I'll try to show you 4 diseases. I think they're quite common to the systems we make and to the code bases we maintain, and I'm really sad that these diseases exist. So unfortunately, like for some other of my talks, this one was also born because of my frustration. So I really hope the frustration won't be like transferred to you. Yet if you see me like almost swearing about some things, it might be because of that. So this is my name, Piotr Przybyl. We are at DEVFEST Toulouse in 2019, my fellow American friends. So this is who I am. I'm self-employed as a remote freelance software gardener. Meaning I work at home, but I can work with you. And this is my Twitter, this is my mail. You can send your, I don't know, comments, questions, hate, whatever. And yeah, I'm mostly Java developer or JVM developer, so much that I'm haunted by Java even when I'm on holiday in Spain. So, sometimes it's even difficult to get on holiday without Java. Okay, so 4 diseases for today. Common DDDosis, regex diarrhoea, not made here syndrome, and malicious stringosis. But before we get to these diseases, let's describe the patient, I mean the body that's suffering from these diseases. So let's talk about the legendary I/O, from the fathers of IT. So I guess you guys recognize this von Neumann's architecture, okay? So we have an input device, output device, control unit. Okay, let's forget that. This is how system looks like, okay? This is how systems actually look like. Like, this is the system. This is the input to the system. We feed the system with some input. And this is the output of the system, right? And whether, it doesn't really matter at what scale we look at the system, whether it's a single tiny function, the whole module, a microservice, the whole program, or even like a big ERP. At some point, at some level, there's going to be an input and some kind of expected output, basically. And if, in case you don't speak German, in German, put means like chick. So this is how we call chicken when you feed them. And weniger input means that we should have less input or worse input, and still we should expect better, meaning better or improved output, and mostly nice, tasty and standardized output here, when we take care of our system. And I'd like to go with this metaphor even more. Like, do you guys have some pets? I don't know, dogs, cats, guinea pigs, whatever, okay? Sometimes they are sick as well. So you take them to a vet. And usually, because what we do as developers when our systems are sick, we have this habit of just jumping directly into the code to see what's happening in the code, to debug this system, to browse the logs and so on. And maybe we should do the same thing that vet does. Once you have a cat, so the vet puts a cat on the table and doesn't take a knife to cut the cat through, right? To see the guts inside. Because then the system is dead, obviously. So a vet takes a look in, let's say, the input of the cat, and they takes a look at the output of the cat and can say that there's something wrong with the stomach, for example, that there's some problem with digestion, right? So we should take this same approach maybe to our systems. Just we should take a look at the input of the system and output of the system, and based on that, have some ideas what's happening inside, if the system is sick or not. Why should we do that? Why we should care about our systems? It's because our system should be really like robust, take heavy load, and perform nicely. Okay, so you have nice input, a lot of chick or put, and the system is, performing so well. Okay, so the first disease, common DDDosis, in Latin, DDDosis sylvestris. It's about diseases after all. So unfortunately, it's quite common in Poland, so I'm really sorry I will bore you maybe for a few minutes, but I would really like you to share my pain, sorry. Do you know this form? Of course you don't. You don't pay taxes in Poland. But this is tax form for income tax, for personal income tax in Poland. And has last name, first name, birth date, country, voivodeship, which is like province in Poland. Then you have country, commune, street, house number, apartment number, city or town, postal code, and post office. Quite a lot, I'd say. And I think that maybe this is the reason for this disease, because this is an example of this disease. Well, I promised you I will teach you some Polish, right? So in English, I would say, let's take a look at this form. The thing is, in Polish, we don't take a look. Because we don't take a look in Polish, we throw an eye. Okay? So I want you to throw an eye on this form. Come on, be brave, be brave. Almost done. Still an eye for you, sir. Okay, so let's, thank you. Let's throw an eye on this form. So it reads, last name or company's name? Okay, first name or tax ID? How the heck do they validate that? There's like a street or postal box, then there's house number, flat number, city, or post office, and postal code of country. And you see this form is pretty crappy. I mean, and because you're not Polish, you don't know whose form that is. This company is known for publishing many books once they translate it to Polish. I mean, many IT books. Okay, so apparently they don't seem to have in their offer any user experience books. Else they wouldn't do that. So taking just by the look and the input at the system, we can kind of foresee that there might be a disease inside. So let's go further. Okay, another form like this, you see, and crappy, and it's like a post office here, postal code, street or a city, like really complicated. This one is really complicated. This is for buyer, this is for delivery address, and this is for invoice address. And still for this postal code, I don't know if it's required or not because I can see the asterisk, right? But you see, you need to fill all these forms. And this is taken from Polish post office manual on addressing stuff, basically. Apparently, Polish post office has a manual on addressing stuff. So it says, when you're sending something abroad, you should put the country here, like France, and then you should put here a postal code and the city, or a village, or a town. Then there's the street address and the name of the person or the company. It's that simple. Okay, and this is what it says exactly the same in Polish and the same here. And here we go to my neighborhood, because I live next to Wrocław, of Deutsch or in German Breslau. I especially like the Latin name of the city, which is Wrocławia. I really recommend visiting our city, although this year we don't have direct flight, sorry. Nevertheless, one of the villages and one of the communes nearby, like in the suburbs, is called Długołęka, and it has this postal code. So this is the address when you take a look at the Selgros / Transgorment, one of these big cash and carry stores. So this is the address, basically, on their webpage. But when you get invoice from them, it's so crappy because I scanned it, okay? Suddenly, from Długołęka, they use Star Trek or something, they migrate to Mirków. Another location, another village. How could this happen? I'll explain it to you. Let's take a look at the map. So this is the map of the commune. Let's say the capital village is in Długołęka, and omnis via Romam ducunt, because Wrocław is located here. All the streets leading to Wrocław or Wrocławia are named the Wrocław Street, in Polish Wrocławska. That's quite obvious. If you have a big city and villages around, all the streets leading in that direction have this name. That's like typical. The issue is, in this commune, we have 8 streets with this name. The post office is located here, and it's not like in the capital village of the commune, which is already confusing to some people. So see, when you read these addresses, you can't be sure whether this transgourmet or Selgros is located here or here. And people say, you're too picky. I mean, nobody complains about that. Even the tax office doesn't complain about that. And the poor delivery guy, I mean, everyone knows where Selgros is, you know? So what's the story is all about? It might work for Selgros. It might not work when you're just a poor Piotr Przybyl. And this is your address, and somebody just does the same bad trick to your to the village you live in. Because just guess, try to guess, okay? I live in this village, so we have Polna Street here. Polna in Polish means like field street. You know, countryside, we have a lot of fields, like crops, and you know. So I live here. Here's another Polna Street, and here's Polna Street in this village called Mirków, where the post office is located here. So just imagine that you're myself, and you pick up a phone, and the delivery guy says, "Look, mister, I can't find your home." So where do you think he is with his van? Here or here? Exactly, he's here, because a company whose name starts with G and ends with LS Poland still forces people that if they enter this postal code, they like kind of deny to acknowledge that there can be many villages under the single postal code. Because due to whatever reason, they require to enter the location of the post office, you know? Where the building actually physically is located. And the funny thing is that if you would take a look at this manual, the actual post office, the owner of this building, doesn't give a damn. They don't care, really. They want to put your village, your town, not the nearest village where they have a building. Yet it's so crappy in many pages. Okay, let's go further. This is how it was hacked by the commune office, so they put both villages here, so they always get deliveries, and it may get even worse. Like, this is a page taken one of the Polish banks, and I will translate for you because obviously you don't have the superpower of speaking Polish. Zarzuć gęślą jaźń, that was Polish, if you were interested. So it says, street, avenue, settlement, square, round, another word for square, like another settlement and a village. Like, you have to choose from. If you like to open an account, let's say, or apply for a credit card. And the funny thing is, in Poland, we can have an avenue or avenues. Like, one of the biggest streets in Varsovie is Aleje Ujazdowskie, which would translate to Ujazdowskie avenues, like plural. And if you happen to live there, well, sorry for you, mate, you won't get the credit card because it's not here. And here you should put the name of the street and the name of the building and the name of your flat. And it works pretty nice if you're a stop-down. But if you're a startup, and if you're really catching more and more like founding, and let's say you will open to people who are francophones, just like you, speaking French. And then we start to have a little problem. Because in Polish, this would be like ulica Rewolucji 6, meaning Revolution Street 6. But in France, as far as I know, this would be 6 Rue de Rivoli. So what do? Do you swap fields for French customers? What happens in Germany when you have Revolutionsstraße? Then this selector doesn't make any sense at all because it's a part of the name of the street. You know, you have Revolutionsplatz or the Revolutionsstraße. Einfach. So, see, being too picky is actually problematic, and I believe you have the same disease, maybe not with addressing, but some other parts in France or countries where people speak French. So, let's take a look how Polish office does it. Sometimes they may lose your package or have a late delivery, but at least they know how to do stuff. And let's skip the other end, because having a look at the front end, we can kind of suspect what will be in the backend, let's say in the database. You can imagine this huge table chopped with many, many columns, right? Why get dirty? There are villages in Poland which don't have streets. If you have a village consisting of 20 houses, you don't have streets, basically. There are states without formal streets. That was shocking for me. There are countries like this in Africa. That's why they, when they have like this contact page, they post GPS coordinates. There are states without postal codes. As far as I know, Japan and other countries don't have like postal codes, right? So if you make it required, nobody from Japan is going to buy it unless they fake it with, I don't know, 000-0-, something like this. So I asked someone, why actually are you doing this? I mean, I asked one of the developers, why are you doing this? And the answer was, of course, because, DDD and event sourcing. Because DDD was so popular a few years back then at the conferences like this. Then we had microservices, now it's Rust, in a few years it's going to have something new. Anyway. This is how the Polish Post Office does the stuff. So they require the postal code or /zip code, the town, city, or village you live in, and then here there's a free text entry. I mean, this is the paper form. If you plan to ship something using Polish Post Office, you don't need to be so picky at your user interface, because anyway they'll have a free text entry there. So why to be so annoying to users? Why to suffer from this disease? Oh, because this way, we better reflect our domain. Really? I mean, let's say you have a central warehouse, and you're shipping from this warehouse to whole Europe. Because why not? Is it really so interesting for you where's the nearest post office from that guy in another country? Does it really matter? Is it really your domain? So you need to DDD that? By the way, I really like the Russian translation of DDD, which is davai, davai, deploy. That stands like more or less like faster, faster, let's deploy that. This is like this bad approach with DDD, okay? So we shouldn't be too picky when it comes to interfaces because it's not our domain. Okay, sometimes it is your domain. Let's say you want to have a separate field with a street number because you work in a pizzeria and you deliver pizzas. And let's say there's a very long street. We have a huge, very long street in Toulouse, like a few kilometers long. So let's say let's imagine you have. Because like in Poland, we have such streets which are few kilometers long. And when you work in a pizza delivery or Uber Eats, you may have a free delivery up to a certain number, up to certain crossroads, and after that it's like paid extra, I don't know, 25 cents per each kilometer or something like this, right? So then it is a part of your domain because you need to make a calculation of this separate house number. In all other cases, it's not your domain, okay? So stop putting this, to be too picky in your address forms and databases when it comes to addressing. And some companies are doing it right. They do exactly the same. They have a free text entry for the address, postal code, and the city, and that's it. That's all that's needed to ship something in Poland. And I believe in France as well, at least using French Post, La Poste. So my prescription to this disease: don't excuse yourself with DDD when you do crappy UI or when you do crappy database schema, especially if you have no idea what you're talking about. Because many people just heard that DDD, so they think this is my domain, so I have to design it in my code, in my database, in my user interface. No, DDD is really not about that. I'm not an expert on DDD, but surely I know that DDD is not about that. About chopping the user interface into many tiny fields. Okay, disease 2, because we need to hurry up. Regex diarrhea. In Latin, diarrhea regexis. Let's go to electronic email this time. So let's say in Poland you would like to install fiber optics in your apartment and you use Google, but you're not allowed to subscribe to Orange Poland using plus aliasing from Google, because they regex that, despite its correct address. If you would like to create an account for Polish Social Security and you have your server just to, wait for the spam. You're not sending anything, so you don't need to have domain name, just IP address. It won't work. Of course, this is not my mail address, okay? But I didn't want to reveal my real public IP. Yet you can have such a stupid password. I have another talk on passwords, and it will be okay. Nobody will guess this password. Password is cool. Email address, not cool. In Poland, when you're selling or buying a car, you need to visit a certain office, and they give you new car plates, and they give you papers that you are the new owner, so the police knows that you didn't steal the car. And of course, they have these ticket machines. Yet when you 15 minutes late, like when you are, let's say, not at 8 a.m. but 8:15, you might be waiting for a whole day. So I decided to kind of subscribe online for this, because we have this e-government something, and it says incorrect email format. So this time I said, no, sorry, I'm going to cut this cat through. I am going to see what's inside. I decided to take a look into to the sources to throw an eye there. So who wants to throw an eye? Again, we have another eye to throw. Vincent, you're so eager. Throw an eye on this code. Yeah, he threw well. Again, an eye for an eye. Here it goes. Let's take a look at this regular expression. So here it is. Here is this @ sign. And before the @ sign, we require anything that's lowercase, uppercase, digits, underscore, dot, or dash. And then there's this domain part, which has to be from 2 to 4 characters. I mean the top level extension, right? And what's problematic with this, let's forget this, that this returns true and false, and that here it writes this validation message. You see, this is really problematic because it's validation with user feedback, everything is mixed. We don't write code like this, okay? Still, the sources can be found here. So what's the problem with this regular expression? The problem is that it blocks valid email addresses like this one. So I decided to take a look at what are correct samples of email addresses. All of these email addresses are correct. So you can have dot, you can have plus, you can have quotation marks, you can have only underscore, you can have dash. Everything is correct. But you see, this email address won't be passed by that regular expression that I have shown you. Even more, you can have domain.travel or .event. Because why not, these new TLDs? Yet it won't pass that regular expression because you have up to 4 characters here. So this regular expression doesn't allow us to use a valid email address. But let's take a look at the invalid email addresses, like these ones. Oh, these were interesting. These ones are interesting. You can start your email address with a dot. You can't end it, the local part with dot, or you can't have 2 or more consecutive dots. It's illegal. But when you take a look at this regular expression, tell me, my friends, in which part it forbids dot to be the first part of the local part? Exactly. So this regular expression takes sometimes legal email addresses. It says, no, this is not correct, yet it will pass incorrect email addresses. So it's like too many false positives and too many false negatives. Sometimes I work like a bootcamp teacher, and one of the exercises during Java course was write a regular expression to validate email addresses. And of course, students came up with various solutions, and I turned out every solution because I said they were incorrect, and I have shown them the correct one. Here it is. This is correct regular expression to validate email addresses in Java. And they asked me, did you write that? And I said, I did whatever every other experienced programmer does. Stack Overflow. Okay? So again, even if you have this very fine regular expression, then you have a form like this. Okay? So when you have to repeat your email address, because it says email address and repeat your email address, what do you guys do? Copy paste, exactly. So if you misspelled it here, it will be misspelled as well in here. So what's the point of having this field? It's rubbish, really. I see some shocked eyes, so I see you have such systems. Okay, so this is a bad way. Please don't do that. So maybe we should use a RFC to validate an email address, because why not? So maybe one of these RFCs, but maybe a server doesn't support them because somebody has an outdated server or a custom implementation. Or maybe we should perform a MX or SMTP test. Or maybe there is no such mailbox, even if the server responds, you know? Or maybe the antivirus will stop your messages because, I don't know, you have too many links, so it pretends to be a scam or something, the email. Or maybe the mailbox exists, your message will be passed, but it just belongs to another user who's unable to access their mailbox, okay? So even if we fulfill all these checks, plus this regular expression, we still cannot be safe and sure that the email will reach the actual person. So maybe we should validate something else. Who wants to throw an eye again? I'm looking for a volunteer. Yeah, take care. Ah, yeah. And now tell me, what are we validating here? Here it is, an eye for you. What's being validated here, my friends? Yeah, okay. That's correct. You have 4 eyes. It's URL. I mean, it shouldn't really matter that this code is written in PHP, but it truly validates a URL. Of course, this is a stupid way. If you have a Boolean variable, you don't return true and then false. Of course, you just return this thing. But when we take a look at this, I mean, this is a sign, you know, this is a culprit that something goes wrong. It is taken from pfSense, one of the distributions for firewall, open source distributions. And I just run a quick test, watch what will pass this regular expression as a URL, of course. s:/example.com is a valid URL. Also, underscore. No protocol will pass it, but let's say the default one is HTTP, maybe. This will pass it. I don't know if you noticed that, but we have a space here. Yeah? And even this will pass it. So what's the point of having such a crappy URL? Sorry, regular expression. Okay? If you have a problem, this is the old wisdom of the Dakota tribe, you know. If you have a problem and you solve it with a regular expression, you end up having 2 problems. That's obvious. Everyone knows that. Of course, it doesn't apply to Perl. So my prescription to this disease, to regex diarrhea, is if you collect email addresses to send something using these email addresses, maybe just send the bloody first message to verify that the email address is okay, that the server can accept it, and that the person actually can open it and click the link, right? Unless you take it only for statistics or, I don't know, something. But if you really want to send something using this email address, maybe it's a wise idea to send the first message. Okay, next disease. Disease 3, not made here syndrome, in Latin, syndroma non fecit a nobis. Okay, who can tell me what's stored in this table? Sorry? That's obvious. You're a consultant, aren't you? Okay, but mostly I'm interested, what's stored in this column? Timestamp. Who was first? You said the first, that's time and date, right? So again, eyes for you, 4 eyes. We have sharp C. Yeah, sometimes it looks like this. It's a variable character to feed all the, you know, the whole date and time. And sometimes it's even like the DDDosis comes into play, and then we have created date and created hour, because this is our domain, of course, to split date from hour. So why not simply do something like this, unless in PostgreSQL, because out of all the SQLs I master Postgre the most. So we could have timestamp with time zone. And that's it. This is the way we should keep time in SQL database, basically. Right? Trust me, even if you think you don't want to keep the time zone, eventually you will need to keep the time zone. Right? Sooner or later, when your company grows. If you don't, you have such a wonderful parser. I mean, this is C#, but you can pretty much imagine that in any language, right? Because someone needed custom format of the date. Or you can have something like this, because they have this padding, and if it's from 1st to 9th, then you add 0, of course. Because no project is scrappy enough in its scrappiness without its own date parser. Okay, this was found somewhere on the daily WTF, and it was just a recipe that if you guys think you work in a crappy project, if they don't have their own date parser, it's not that crappy yet. But once you find the date parser, it means, yeah, it's really the true bottom, the absolute zero. There are more examples like this, like database in a database. Okay, so we have the column, and you have 2,000 characters and 20 characters to decide what it's kept in here. Does it ring a bell? Any SAP consultants in the room? This is SQL in SQL, right? Database in database. Generating CSV in database. Like when you have something like this, you have your beautiful query here. Then you have for each row, column, and then if it's timestamp, of course, then you format it in a different way. Obvious. If it's not the date, you format it in another way, and then you have new lines, formatting, escaping, and stuff. And apparently, I had to replace this stuff after previous developers from another company, and I just did that. First, I used search engine, and this is it. You write your query, and you write to standard output with CSV header, redirect to file, and run it in Postgre. And that's it. That's the whole thing. You don't need to create a custom script in Python, Ruby, whatever. Yeah. This is how it ends up when you do something on your own, really, when it's not necessary. So in Polish we say, you have itchy fingers. Palce cię świerzbią, you have itchy fingers, you're eager to do something on your own. So if you want to parse dates your own way, or implement database in database, or develop your own DNS resolver, because all the other DNS resolvers are really crap, and you need to hash passwords your own way, for security, or generate CSV, you should remember that someone somewhere already did that. Most probably better, because many people tested that, reported bugs, and so on and so on. So my prescription to this, if you're holding this golden hammer, you have this golden hammer, and you want to hammer in all the nails you find, like with this hammer you can, smash everything, and you master SQL, so you're able to write a reporting in SQL and send email from SQL and everything, because you have this golden hammer of SQL on your own. Then instead of smashing and hitting everything with this hammer, I recommend that you should ask your friend to hit you. Softly. Without this hammer, of course. Okay? Just because it's not made by you doesn't mean that something is bad. I would say quite the opposite. Okay? Okay, the last disease 4, malicious stringosis, in Latin stringosa malignum. We keep this example with the database check. Sorry, database table. So does it look familiar? Does it ring the bell? Have you seen such schemas? Some people are smiling. Yeah, it's in your code base. I know that. So we have this ID kept as a character, and we have a check to really ensure that it's an UID. Then you have when it was created. Of course, because we can't keep like a timestamp with time zone, a name and a tax ID as a long and a double as double, and we check the precision again, because we can't have two positions after comma, right? And in Java, C#, anything, it looks more or less like this. So we have all the primitive types here. And then in each and every method, you see a code like this. I'll zoom it in. Okay, so we have some operation related to tax ID. You pass this tax ID as long, and then you have this validation utils. Who has this validation utils? We have it, right. We have this validation utils, and we check we assert if this tax ID is correct. If not, we throw an exception, and when the check is done and everything's all right, we can start with actual real business logic, because we're so obsessed with primitive types. And again, the same for client-related operation and so on, because it's your client's ID. And let's try again. Let's try to redo this little example. Maybe we should do the same, but for only better. For UID, for ID, you should use UID. For created, as I have shown you in the previous example, we should use timestamp. Name, I see no better candidate than variable character for time being, but for tax ID, like in Poland, there's 10 characters and there's a precise algorithm to checksum that, and you can keep balance in PostgreSQL as money. There is a type in PostgreSQL for money, so you have different precision like for yens and different for euros, for example. And then in Java, you can keep it like UID, instant string, tax ID, you can create this new type or type alias. One type alias maybe in Scala, but yeah, they need to create a new class, right? And monetary amount from moneta to keep the balance. And maybe we can improve it even further. Maybe we can get rid of this balance, because this would make our client class instances immutable, right? So we don't have this mutability problem. And the next thing is really property of the client, the balance, or maybe it's a property of this client's reference in our system. And we replace this UID with client ID. So we don't pass there just any UID, but the client ID. And thanks to that, our code can look like this, at least in Java. Oh, sorry. Okay, I stopped zooming in. So we have tax ID, and we just check if it's not null. And in Kotlin, you don't even need to check if it's null, because by default it can be null, right? So we can right away start with your business logic, because finally you're using your compiler to be your friend, to be your pair programmer, and to tell you that you're doing stupid thing because you were trying to pass long or string here, basically, right? So you're making some use of the compiler. So we get rid of API absurds like this, because what does it mean? Like, let's take a look at this as if it was a DSL. What's the business value behind this? Getting the first character from the ID. What's the value of concatenating it and getting bytes in some encoding? What's the value of, provided both are longs, what's the value of selecting both sorry, I'm missing like less than 42 here in this example, but yeah, we can select the minimum value out of this compared to another value, and then based on that do something. So it's a plain absurd, API-wise, besides I have a mistake here. So remember that premature optimization is root of all evil, right? And mutable objects are optimization too. And keeping primitive types is optimization too. Most of the time, premature. And easy to generate JSON is not an argument, sorry. Right? You should write this bloody Marshall serializer, whatever, to generate this JSON, not keep everything in strings or primitives because it's easy to generate JSON. Because there are questions like this made by Zach Carman. He asked, he's really tired of making this test, what if a guy enters a bar and there's a lizard? And there was a great answer from Mario Fusco. That library that makes those stupid tests for you is probably one of the best definitions of what a statically typed language is for. So my prescription, every time you keep stuff in Java, C# and any other statically typed language as a string or any other primitive type, think really, really hard if you're not turning Java or C# into JavaScript or PHP. Because this is what you effectively do when you overuse primitive types in statically typed languages. You turn it into a dynamic language. So why bother with compiler? Just to emit some CO2? It's ridiculous. So conclusion, yeah, in another twist, Mario says that once you choose proper data representation, data structure for your data, many things become obvious. So once you set the firm constraints on the input and on the output, you can reduce a great deal of issues in your code inside between this input and output, basically. So merci beaucoup. We've reached the end of this talk. I wish you guys could stay fit, but just one more thing, 30 seconds if you mind. I really ask you to always, and for everyone, during every event, provide feedback, because we speakers value your feedback, and thanks to the feedback, thanks to this feedback, next time you'll get better talks from better speakers. So if you're shy, if you don't want even to approach this feedback wall, you can pass me a paper card. I will accept it as a feedback, really. And There's a little poll I made here. It's anonymous, so if you could spend like 20 minutes of your life and fill it and provide me some feedback, I'd be really grateful to you. And yep, and here are the slides for you. And this is the very end, so as you can read, I'm happy to talk to you, so I'll be waiting for you in the speaker's corner, right? Right after this talk. Thank you very much, stay fit.